Hi, I'm Julian Vasquez Heilig. I'm the Dean and Professor in the College of Education at the University of Kentucky. And I'm a proud Michigan alum, a proud UROP alum. I graduated from the University of Michigan in 1997 with a bachelor's and majors in history and psychology. And let me tell you, what does 1997 mean? That means that the scoreboards in the football stadium only had the score and the names of the teams. There were no fancy video boards. Then in 1999, I graduated with a master's in higher education from the College of Education. And I also spent a year in the Ford School of Public Policy. So a year in Ford and a year in the College of Education working on my master's. I'm actually surprised that I can do this video for you today because I'm still in a state of disappointment after the Elite Eight loss. I was there in Indianapolis, so my blood is blue and yellow. So let's move to the theme of the symposium today. The theme of the symposium is about research and how that research impacts the world, impacts society. Now, I'll tell you, when I joined UROP, it was because I received a postcard in the mail when I was a freshman living in East Quad. And I didn't actually know what research was. I didn't choose the University of Michigan because it was a research university. I guess I didn't know what research was. But that's what UROP did for me, is it exposed me to the research that can make a difference in the world. My UROP project was working with Sylvia Hurtado in the College of Education, understanding the transition of Latinos to higher education. And at the time, that was really me search because I had a lot of challenges, having the large econ classes and all that was very intimidating to me as a freshman. And I wasn't so sure Michigan was the right place for me. But what I found was a passion to create knowledge. That's what research allows you to do, to investigate our nation's, our community's biggest problems and suggest ideas and solutions driven by research, whether it is in the health field, the education field, etc. Now, I think research can contribute greatly to society and humanity. I really believe that. Now, there's one unfortunate circumstance that maybe I shouldn't tell you about, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you about it anyway. And that is that the average peer reviewed research paper is read by less than 10 people. The average academic book is bought by less than 100 people. And when I first started as a professor at the University of Texas at Austin, I was moving into my office and there were books and magazines and journals, all sorts of stuff spread through the hallway. It was the work that the professors that were retiring, these were going to go out to the trash, out to the recycling, etc. And so I thought to myself, how can I do research that matters? How can I do research that will be impactful, that will contribute to society and humanity? And so I realized that I wanted to follow my curiosity and try to solve the big problems in education. I specifically do work on education policy, and my work is about charter schools, it's about high stakes testing, access to higher education. The thread that binds the work that I do is how can we create better policies? How can we encourage policymakers and communities to work together to create policies that create more educational opportunities for historically marginalized communities and more specifically students of color? And so, what I realized early on in my career is that I needed to make my work more readily available to the public and for different audiences. So, half of what I needed to do was make sure I follow my curiosity and make sure that I created knowledge that was cutting edge across different areas. So, many of you out there, not education scholars, there's probably sciences out there, humanities, all different research that happens in UROP. But how do you make that work? Once it's complete, how do you make that work readily available? Now, the way I did it, starting in 2012, was using what I call a social media ecology. So often we use social media, students nowadays, you'll see them on their TikToks and you'll see them on their Insta, etc. But how can we use social media to make sure that the work that we do is more readily available. I started a blog. That blog has been read by more than 1 million readers in more than 200 countries, and those readers include policymakers, they include educators, they include a wide variety of stakeholders. So when I finish a research study, I'll put it on my blog. I'll talk about it on LinkedIn. I'll put a little meme on Instagram. I'll talk about it on Facebook. So not only will I present at a research symposium that, similar to what UROP holds in the spring for all of the UROP grads, but I'll also make sure that that work is readily available to all stakeholders, because that's the work that we need to do to contribute to society and humanity. Otherwise, that work will stay in that book. That work will stay in that journal. And when I was in your shoes, I thought to myself, I don't know if I want to do research. I don't know if it'll be impactful, but I am living testament that your work can make a difference. Let me give you one example. We worked on a project called Community-Based Accountability back in 2012. I put together a work group. We published several papers. We made those papers available to policymakers and other stakeholders in California to create an education accountability system that was created by communities instead of created by policymakers and it being a top-down policy. The legislators in California adopted the ideas that we wrote about, and that became the law for every single school, district, and student in public education in California. So that's just one small idea that I came up with on an airplane coming back from an academic conference. That curiosity drove me to write those papers, make those papers available to policymakers, and those ideas became impactful for society and humanity. The latest research by the Learning Policy Institute found that the achievement gap is closing in California, that suspensions are down by several 100,000 since they started this new approach for education in California. Now, these are tough times. We've had the twin pandemics. We've had the pandemic of systemic racism come to the fore. Last summer, I think we were all aghast with the excessive police violence that we saw in the media related to George Floyd. And we also, of course, had the COVID-19 pandemic. This has made it, I think this has caused us as an academic community to reassess our values. And not only reassess our values in terms of the contributions of the health professions to our society and their important and key role as first responders to this nation's pandemic, but we also need to see ourselves as researchers as first responders to our society's ills. The curiosity-driven research allows us to address the challenges that communities are crying out for solutions. Communities want good information. They want good research. They want to work with civil rights organizations and policymakers and academics to create solutions that will address the systemic inequities that continue to exist in our society. The operation of institutional racism that has stacked the deck against historically marginalized communities in many ways, whether it's in terms of the environment, in terms of education, in terms of policing, etc. So I want to tell you, as an academic leader, we are committed to doing this work. We are committed to offering these opportunities to our students to engage in curiosity-driven research because we want you, as a Wolverine, as a Michigan man, as a Michigan woman, as a Michigan person, to leave a legacy. That is our sacred responsibility as Wolverines. Go blue. Go forth and be productive, curiosity-driven scholars. Make a difference. Contribute to society and humanity with the research that you do. And I so hope that you'll be impactful. And we'll see you very soon.